its negative or unhealthy ways, right? That we each have a role to play.
Mm-hmm. Now, hey, you know, you have cross-cultural experience. Have you tried the matrix system with minorities?
Yes, we have, and in fact, we've incorporated a lot of understanding about systems of oppression and how these social systems and cultural systems get set up.
And what kind of groups of minorities did you work with?
We've worked with all kinds. I think the most influential groups that there's a system called NCBI, National Coalition Building Institute, and we've had some trainers who went through our training as well. And there was a period of time, maybe 10 years ago or so, when we were actually being trained by them in addition to them being in our system. So we had sort of a swapping. But African American, Native American systems have informed us. We've worked with people from Asia. We've worked with an Israeli woman that Israeli couple. The founder just recently came back from Russia, where she did some work with groups there. So well,
gangs, street gangs, are former groups. What about the negative aspects of groups? How, like, if you came in with Matrix and tried to kind of rehabilitate a gang, is that possible? I know it'd be a hell of a challenge and something you would love to do, but.
Wow, I haven't thought of that. I mean, I consider a gang structure pretty extreme, but I mean, from what I've understood, the value is the sense of community and this. You know, I've got your back and you've got mine. But violating the rules is pretty lethal.
Yeah, which is totally again opposite of the Matrix.
Yeah, that's the part I'd have a lot of trouble with.
We do have a couple of trainers who have worked with teen boys, so not necessarily in gangs, but you know, people who have been on the streets and such.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the Matrix Communication Network that you haven't discussed? You know, you didn't talk about, like, there's some people there underneath.
That's our logo.
Yeah. Was there any significance to that logo? It almost looks like in the bottom of that lower right-hand side that the logo is like a much larger matrix.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. We have a gentleman on staff in Boulder who is an engineer, and he constructed a matrix with just hundreds of connections, and he was experimenting with, like, if you take a couple of the connections out, what happens? And the whole thing kind of just reformed itself, so that it's possible with, you know, within larger matrix systems that that resiliency is still there even when people go missing.
I understand what you're saying, in that once you've got a strong matrix, it's okay. It's much stronger if one or two members of the group there's a problem, or they disappear.
Yeah.
I can add one thing. This, in a way, this could be used as a metaphor for something we also pay attention to, which is the formation of subgroups. Any system can form subgroups, which is people that have things in common, or people that may have a difference in common, or people that may have known each other outside of the group. And if the subgroup doesn't get brought into the open, it can kind of clog up, not kind of, but it will clog up the communication flow.
Now, is there a subgroup in there?
I was using this image that you were pointing out as a metaphor for subgroups.
Okay.
It's not intended that way, but that's what happens in this system. Subgroups form.
And then if you have subgroups, it's not going to look like that.
No.
Right.
Are subgroups undesirable?
They're a fact of life. I think if they get too powerful, like in any one situation, or they're not, they're, like Buck was saying, if they don't bring their information that the subgroup is working with back into the whole group, then it can get stuck.
Well, when I think of subgroups, I think of high school cliques. You know, the jocks, the stoners, the brains. You know.
Right, and how influential each, you know, and there's power, right, with that. Which subgroup has more power than the other? I mean, that's a really important thing that we also work with.
And is part of the matrix training and learning is reflecting upon your previous group experience?
Oh, you mean in the Matrix training system?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah. Like whatever has happened in the, whatever, like one of the trainings is set up over a 4-session time period over about 6 months.
Or 8, maybe.
Yeah, and there's a building from each 4 or 5 day session to the next. So it's all it all continues to be referenced as you go through it.
But the training group is going from its birth to its death. So it follows itself. It's like a laboratory for learning. So it's following its own process. And as each member is learning, they're also learning about the group as a whole. And they can experience all those different phases.
So you're applying you're putting the theory right into practice.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, laboratory learning.
Well, is it okay to ask you a personal question? Is how
Sure.
you apply the matrix in your day-to-day life besides teaching and counseling on it?
I have a great story from
I think
Saturday.
that's a good example. Go for it.
I was thinking about this. Saturday was Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
And as my little family of 4, it's my husband, myself, and my 2 kids, we were doing an exercise that we've done the last couple of years where we write out to each individual family member what we want to apologize for, and or how we've wronged each other. And so my son was kind of pouting and not wanting to do the exercise. He kind of just wrote a general thing for everybody.
How old is
He's
your son?
11.
Okay.
So we took some significant time during the day to write these things out, and he had just a little paragraph, and he just was struggling with the exercise this year. And last year he had done it fine. And so we all come back together as a family to talk about it, and he was sort of voicing that it wasn't very easy for him this year. And so, maybe if I was in our typical dynamics, we might go, oh, what do you do? You're the bad kid or whatever. There could be this dynamic where he's in a role of being the uncooperative one or the lazy one or whatever it might be, right? But I was really identifying with the struggle. And so I happened to say to him, I struggled with this year too. Last year I wrote a page on everybody, and this year I only have, a paragraph on everybody. So it wasn't as easy this year for me either. And I could see him sort of perk up a little bit. And then, we shared a little bit around, and then my daughter said to him directly, well, it kind of hurts my feelings that you didn't take the time, and I took all this time to write.
And how old's your daughter?
She's 14.
Okay.
It's a little more mature, right? But, and so he was able to really hear that and apologize to her in the moment. And then as we did this sharing and exercise around the family, he actually got more interactive. He was able to articulate specific things instead of just something more general. And I think it was really that he didn't get stuck in that role. And by me taking a little bit of my struggle off of him, it freed him up to be a little bit more involved and authentic.
Okay, so that was a planned exercise. What about, say, unplanned exercise, like parents, in the morning, rushing to get ready for work and get the kids off to school? It's like, I could imagine what the Matrix looks like that.
Right.
But
you want to say anything about that?
Or you want to talk about like Matrix in your own personal life?
Well, one of the principles of giving feedback to an individual is to use one of the phrases we use is the impact on me, the way I feel affected by what you just said or what you did. And I've used that many times in my family.
And so that's the interpersonal connection?
Yeah, yes, and it keeps the focus off of you're doing something wrong to this is my experience, this is what happens to me.
So you don't get in that blaming placater
Exactly, in that power
dynamic.
struggle about who's right.
Right.
Yeah. That helps disarm things. If you can, have the fortitude to do it in the face
Right.
of, your child's anger or whatever they're shooting at you.
Right.
So,
Right.
Well, this kind of leads into the next question, by both of what you said. Explain why experiential learning is important for adult learning. Why do adults learn more through experiential exercises or life than through books? Anybody want to take that?
Do you want to say something?
well, I think because you get to use your whole person, not just the rational, intellectual part of retaining information. Like I have the information, I'm going to impart it to you, and then you're going to learn it and go use it somewhere. But you get to use your whole experience in the moment, in the process. And there's also a lot of availability for spontaneous, creative movement or expression or action or inquiry.
Yeah, we try to use a whole body approach and and multiple learning styles too, because people learn in so many different ways. But having it be experiential, the thing about experiential learning is that you can keep learning from that event long after it's over.
Right. Part of the brain learns from life experiences,
Right.
and if that part of the brain isn't working properly, then people make the same mistakes over. Right. But when I got asked the question, it came to me, oh, you're learning the most important lesson there is, or reason why we're here is learning to be human.
Yeah.
And you need other people to
practice
to be a model or to reflect your understanding of what it is for each of us to be human.
Right.
So.
And the other aspect too that I think is really cool is as you're in this experiential learning lab, let's say, and you're learning more about yourself based on the reflections that you see, how yourself reflected in other people, then you start to change inside, right? Like you can start to rewrite your own story about, you know, something you might have believed about yourself a long time ago.
Well, I like what Buck said, that you know, you're talking about how a person's words or actions impacted us instead of, you know, making a judgment.
Right.
Decision or statement about someone else.
Right.
We have 2 minutes left. The time is flying.
Okay.
You know, well, say something that you want to get out about Matrix. What do you want the audience to know about the Matrix training?
It's life-changing. I think a lot of people go through it and they go through it again and again because they learn so much about so many different aspects of themselves and others.
Well, how many different trainings there are? You talked about like the basic training, and then there's more?
A weekend experience. There's a 2-phase where you learn like the essential tools, and then there's a 4-phase more foundational training, like sort of an advanced learning. And then you can go on and learn how to become a facilitator, whether that be facilitating for Matrix or facilitating in your own context.
So let's say if a mom or husband and wife, they wanted to learn Matrix to apply their own family dynamic, they can just learn how to be a facilitator.
Yeah, take an individual training. And then we also have the trainings for organizations, which is different.
And you are going to be teaching at the Infinity Foundation?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we're doing 2 classes.
Excellent, excellent. I hope they fill up. You have a lot of information to offer. For more, I've got to close out now.
Okay, thank you.
For more information about Buck and Carol and the Matrix, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, wish you good health, good spirits, and good fortune. Thank you, Carol.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Buck. It's
Thanks,
good
Jay.
to see you again.
Yeah.
For more information about this show, our guests, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.